Welcome to the Forefront 5. I'm your host, Dr. Betsy Warnley, and today I have an exciting guest, one of Forefront's own, Garth. Garth, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Dr. Warnley. I'm happy to be here. Long-time listener, first-time guest.
Awesome. I love it. Well, Garth McMullen has vast experience and accomplishments in talent acquisition, and they're extensive, spanning over 30 years in varying industry sectors and geographies, with increasing responsibilities within the talent acquisition or talent strategy discipline, incorporating a blend of corporate and agency talent acquisition, talent management, succession planning, retention, and talent demand planning for 40 countries. Garth's contributions have been made as a global talent acquisition lead, director of talent acquisition, and as a vice president of talent for Fortune 100 and 500 organizations, as well as middle market and startup firms. Having led talent acquisition teams within healthcare, life sciences, insurance, IT, finance, and professional services, hospitality and retail settings, it is within the healthcare vertical that Garth feels most aligned. A University of Florida graduate, avid reader, traveler, golfer, beach goer, Garth enjoys spending time with his wife, Stephanie, an HR director, and his mother, Irma, a retired physician's assistant who lives a short mile away. Garth, that's a mouthful, lots of talent acquisition included in there. And, I think any of our listeners can understand why we were really excited when you decided to join the Forefront team with all of your vast experience. And we love that you feel most aligned with healthcare. Maybe that's due to some of the family members you have in healthcare. But let's just dive in and ask our first question, which is, can you tell our audience why in the world I would think it was a good idea to have you speak to a team of physicians, physician assistants, nurse practitioners, and a host of wonderful employees of Forefront Dermatology who are all focused on some aspects of a patient's journey in dermatology?
Sure, great. Thank you for the warm welcome. I appreciate that, and it certainly was a mouthful. And I do feel very aligned to healthcare. My mother was a physician's assistant, as I mentioned, or as you mentioned, and I shared with you previously. So, how does talent align with Forefront, or with our family at Forefront? It's in the employee journey. It's directly aligned, right? It's imperative that we're bringing the right individuals into the organization to offer that patient experience and that patient journey for the individuals and patients that we serve. So you want to have a direct correlation, and you put yourself in the patient's shoes. And when you come into the practice, you want to have a relationship with the PSR, you want to have a relationship with a medical assistant, you want to have a relationship with the doctor. All of those things are so imperative, and that is clearly how talent is aligned. The better we are at isolating, onboarding those individuals, and inculcating our team into our practices, the better the patient experience and the better the journey will be.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think this is a hot topic right now with the workforce that we'll talk about later. But I think any of our listeners would understand why talent acquisition, or just getting really great people to work for us, is of just highest importance right now in Forefront Dermatology. You've been doing this a long time, Garth, over 30 years. What significant changes have you seen over that time span, and what's your insight on the labor market, kind of what I just referred to?
Sure. Yes, I have been doing it a long time. Not to date myself, but when I first started recruiting, my database was a recipe box and 3x5 cards. So it was really kind of a Rolodex, and that was back when it was headhunting. So you would smile, file, and dial, and try and relate to candidates as well as potential job opportunities for those candidates. So it's very, very different. So, having been in this over 30 years, it's been a great run. It's a fantastic trade, and it continuously changes. And what I love, most disruptive from my viewpoint, has really been the technology that's available today. And I take a look at Forefront. We have a human capital management system And then we had a kind of a bolt-on applicant tracking system that this organization developed, and it was suboptimal, really, from my perspective. And we made a heavy invested in an applicant tracking system. And with that, when you leverage that technology, then you have the data, then you have the insights, then you have all of this information that can help you make better decisions from a talent acquisition, talent perspective. So from my viewpoint, technology is certainly the disruptor, but it also lends itself to being able to gather the information that you need to better position yourself as a talent attraction organization and a retention organization.
Yeah, for sure. I think the listeners know our focus this year has been on how do we utilize technology on all aspects of the patient care journey to make it better, not only in the clinic, but on the, hiring the best people, getting the word out to the best people. How do we let candidates know that this is the best job, in our town, in our community? So I think you're bringing great insight on the tech side, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But you also really believe it's important to work collectively, collaboratively with all stakeholders throughout the entire recruitment continuum. Expand on that and what that means and how that might be different than how we've done things in the past at Forefront.
Sure. Put it simply, talent acquisition, talent is a team sport. As I've seen in many organizations, stakeholders are so heads down in their day to day that they open up a requisition, kind of expect that talent's just going to come their way. It's a very different world now. When we take a look at today's labor market with the reshuffling that's happening and individuals that are kind of moving on from organizations and looking at other opportunities. We all have to be thinking about talent attraction and talent acquisition. From our talent acquisition team to the leaders in the practices, to the physicians, to the operations team, to the sports center, we have to create this culture of talent acquisition in order to kind of keep the coffers full with individuals interested in our organization, as well as those that we can kind of continue to reach out to when we do have opportunities. So from that perspective, that's a major focus for us.
So Garth, from a physician standpoint, I always like to leave these with actionable items for the docs. When we say, hey, we need a really talented medical assistant or RN, and we task your team with that goal, how do we continue to be, a participant in that continuum? What would you give advice to the doctors in the field, building on that statement you just made?
Sure. One word: collaborate. Connect with the talent acquisition consultant. I know that we lean into our regional clinical managers from an operations perspective to liaise between the talent acquisition team and the clinicians, but I do think that there's opportunity for that direct connect, and so we can help to coach and counsel the clinicians that maybe update your LinkedIn site or your profile. Don't be afraid to like and share. Put social, content out there. Some people are a little less apt to do that, but the more of that we're doing from a social perspective, the more we're pushing out our messaging. And I think, working with the clinicians and the TA team hand in hand, we can, and also leverage, our wonderful marketing partners, we can really make a difference in driving out our message.
That's cool. I love that. And we're going to be talking at the retreat about, a lot of us don't really have social accounts and why it matters. And I think we always think, social just matters for marketing, maybe. And maybe we want to set up a social account for marketing, but I think it can go beyond that when we have a really tech-focused team like you and the talent acquisitions team. And I love that idea of integrating it into your social. So we'll run with that, Garth. I like that. Right. Giving the great resignation, what's your advice on how our organization, Forefront, should be positioning ourselves to remain really competitive, the top job in the market?
Sure. Well, first of all, the great resignation is real. as I was coming up, there's always discussion about war for talent. There's a war for talent, and the war for talent is on. And I would submit that the war for talent's over. There's simply a shortage. So we have to recognize that. So key piece in, kind of extending from the great talent acquisition experience that our candidates have, we have to have talent engagement. We have to have talent retention. We need to be listening to our new hires. We need to be more human. So all of those things collectively will kind of help from a stickiness perspective of keeping our new hires with us over the long haul. And also understanding that, and I mentioned this at the outset, it isn't just a great resignation, but it's a great reshuffling. People are moving. Not everybody's leaving the job market. There certainly are those that are, but we're getting plenty of applications. We're getting I've seen our applications increase by 60, 70% since I came on board with our new applicant tracking system. The key is to get to those individuals quickly with a sense of urgency and creating that great candidate experience and transferring that into a great new hire experience to a great employee experience.
That resounds with me, Garth, because I think in the past, we were a little more archaic. We didn't have the tech. I think tech can make things faster, ability to respond and choose the right applicants and candidates. And that's been one of the feedback items I've received from both people we ended up hiring or, people that I maybe saw as patients down the road. They said, hey, I applied and it took a long time for the team to get back to me. So physicians, PAs, NPs who have felt that way, it's good for them to hear. I think the implementations you've put in place are resolving that. Would you agree with that?
I would, yeah. There's still opportunity for improvement. We went live with a new applicant tracking system last October. Then we built on the onboarding module, which went live the middle of March. So there's still, opportunity for certainly improvement. It will be a continuous improvement process. But I will offer, today it takes 2 minutes and 5 seconds for an applicant to apply to one of our positions at Forefront, which is best in class. Now the key is to get to them quickly and react and start that relationship, set expectations, and then drive the process forward.
Just the fact that how long it takes them to apply means we're ahead. So Garth, kudos to you. I know there's also been a shift in the talent function to really lean into marketing and branding. We mentioned that earlier about integrating marketing in order to attract and retain new hires. Talk a little bit more about that and how it relates to Forefront, Garth.
Sure. Specifically to Forefront. So this is very unique in my experience with Forefront in that, when I joined under Scott Goss, the Chief Marketing Officer. So think about that, a talent acquisition professional reporting into marketing. Now, what happens in most organizations is you have a TA function that reports into human resources, and then you will hire a TA branding manager or something, to that effect, a position like that, which is very much needed in a talent acquisition organization. Forefront flipped the script. And talent acquisition was reporting into marketing. Now, Scott's been promoted to Chief Operating Officer, but he still has marketing. So I'm still reporting into him and directly aligned with our VP of marketing. So it is a talent acquisition professional's nirvana to be aligned with someone who understands marketing so well, who understands the data and the analytics and how to make decisions from the insights that you can achieve from the data and the systems and tools that you have in place. So that's it's really been unique with Forefront, and I expect to see that continuing.
That's awesome, and kudos to Scott Goss on that. I think more and more, especially as tech gets involved, I talk about this with my doctors. Nothing's in silos anymore, right? And the organizations that do things the best use every talent in the room for every function. So I think that's a really great example of that, Garth. Sure. Talking about the candidate experience, which is obviously paramount, what can we do at Forefront to create that best in class experience for the candidates, for the new hires, et cetera?
Yeah, a combination. It feeds really nicely off your statement. We leverage the technology to do so for an expedient and seamless process for our new hires. And we're communicating with them through their new hire candidate portal. Everything in the emails all captured, timestamped, so where the candidates are in process. And then as they onboard, we continue to build nuances in that experience based on, as clinic or business unit or role. So we can one of the things that we're walking down the path to is building videos and video vignettes. So that kind of helps to personalize that onboarding experience for our candidates as well as for the new hires during the onboarding process. So that again kind of lends itself to that video content lends itself to us being more human, more approachable, and putting our best foot forward for the individuals that are joining us in the organization.
For sure. And you kind of touched on my next question, a good segue. Talk about the talent technology that you've referred to throughout this conversation that you've seen has been most transformational for organizations you've worked in.
Yeah. Applicant tracking systems certainly were hugely transformational. There's so many of them now and so many variations, and so many have different bells and whistles. But you really just, when it comes down to, selecting a great applicant tracking system, do so with what makes most sense for your organization as you're looking to scale, or if you're just looking for something to plug and play. We made a selection with a great applicant tracking system called iCIMS, which suits us to a T. And we also have an individual internally who can configure iCIMS, who's a W-2 employee who reports into the TA team, who has that systems expertise. So we can, on the fly, kind of configure a new process or a new experience for a new hire. So from that perspective, I think the ATS is certainly transformational. There's also, kind of next step and where we'll get to, and we're still relatively new at this as an organization, is a candidate relationship management system where you're interacting and curating and cultivating that talent that might not necessarily want to apply yet, but they're part of marketing campaigns and part of push messaging that you're pushing out there. And again, sharing more video content about your organization and your operations. So really ATS, CRM, and then, as I mentioned, certainly the video, and we're going in that direction with iCIMS Video Studio as well.
Awesome. So in summary, for the doctors who might not understand all the acronyms and the fancy tech acronyms, Garth, it sounds to me like we're hitting the candidates before they apply, and maybe are in the field of interest with marketing campaigns. When they do apply, they're applying on different technology that makes it quicker, easier to track, better response time. And then once they join, we have some pretty cool onboarding software. I know I recorded some videos for the candidates, but they can, not only learn about the clinic or the department they're working under, but maybe complete some of their forms and paperwork on this more streamlined system. Did I nail that?
You nailed it. Yeah, everything is within the candidate portal, and then it is broken up by videos as well. So there's, your welcome video, and I know we're working on additional video, and then there's also for your particular clinic, your video with your medical assistants, interviewing them and sharing what they love about being part of the clinic and Forefront. It just really personalizes that experience.
Awesome.
So,
You know that my goal is to actually have a video of the position from the doctor or PA or NP that is listing it on the actual job application. So TBD on that one, right, Garth?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we want to get there.
Speaking of TBD, do we have the right technology in place now? We just need to, kind of get it up fully to speed, or are there some missing pieces in your mind?
We do. I'm, really impressed with the Forefront leadership and the investment in talent and technology. It isn't just the applicant tracking system, the investment in iCIMS, but the add-on investment in iCIMS with the onboarding module. But we also invested in a survey tool, as you know, so we'll be able to go out and produce an engagement survey for our employees. We can also leverage this tool for onboarding, we can leverage it for pulse surveys, and we can leverage it for offboarding or the curtain call when employees leave us. Let's get some feedback as to why. So that's going to be a great tool. In addition, we've invested in an assessment for our contact center, which has been very, very helpful, which is a simulation. So our contact center agents will go through kind of not just a typing test, but data entry. How can they toggle on the keyboard? How are they responding to questions? Their IMs are popping up, emails are coming in. So it's a complete simulation in the day of a life of a contact center agent. So really kind of leaning into that technology has been, I think, a big lift for the organization.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about all of it. And I'm really excited about kind of the new hire experience as well. We talked about onboarding, but what can maybe the physicians or the listeners, Forefront employees, do to enhance that experience for new hires?
Yeah, it's really about making the new hires feel welcome. I think that it doesn't have to be all based on technology, data analytics, and some of the things that we're talking about today. But I did mention be more human. Understand when individuals are coming on board, they're new, they're nervous. It's new and fresh. It may be old hat to you as someone who's been with the organization or in the clinic for a number of years. But let's not forget that this individual is new to the organization, and I'll tell you that the 18 to 24-year-old is the largest number of applicants that are coming across the pipeline today, and that age group is looking for that connectivity. You think that it's you see them kind of heads down in the phone, but they really want that sense of community, that sense of feeling, and that the connectedness to the organization, to the clinic.
Yeah, and I think it's not just HR and talent acquisition's job to get the employees in the door. It's our job, like you said, Garth, to cultivate them and figure out. I've talked in the past what their language of appreciation is, and give that to them when they're new hires. So I think that ties well into our past podcast about speaking languages of appreciation to our employees.
Sure.
Let's talk more about keeping that new employee and existing employee engaged throughout their entire journey. We've talked about we're going down the continuum of getting applicants in the door, hiring them, onboarding them, making them feel appreciated. How do you keep them engaged throughout that employee journey?
Yeah, I think we're starting out on the right foot with first getting a baseline and understanding what the temperature check or pulse check of our employee population is by engaging in this employee engagement survey. That's really going to give us some insight, and not only insight, but I know you'll appreciate this, but actions. Right? What actions do we take as a result of the data that we receive and that we take in? And the great thing about the tool that we've licensed is that action plans are built right in to the results of the survey. So we'll be able to take immediate action on what we learn. So certainly, the survey piece is going to be a huge part of that. I think also understanding, that there is an employee journey, there is an employee life cycle. And, we need to be checking in at those various stage gates of that, be it, performance management, diversity, equity, inclusion, coaching, counseling, mentoring, the whole engagement piece, as well as I mentioned, offboarding. Why are people leaving us? And if they are, let's perhaps celebrate that and let them know that the door is still open. There's nothing better than a boomerang employee coming back to your organization after she or he left for greener pastures.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. How do you actually measure if all of this hard work, time, talent, and money is working, Garth?
Yeah. A couple of ways. I mean, certainly with your turnover, right? You're gonna have to take a look at how many of your positions are newly created and how many positions are replacements, and if they're replacements, then why? And I think we have to take a good close look at that as an organization too, from a talent acquisition perspective. If my TA team are working on 50% of their positions, which are replacements, then rather than working on growth, or rather than spending time creatively sourcing, then we're really just kind of, filling the bucket that has a leak. So I think that we really need to kind of wrap our arms around and understand why individuals are leaving, where they're going, what we can do to curtail that. So that's, certainly the retention piece is going to be huge for us kind of going forward.
For sure. And having the technology to track that, I think that's a big deal and something you've brought, Garth. So given our theme of back to our future, what's your vision of the future on the TA function, your job in 10 years, Garth?
Boy, it's changed so much in the 30 years that I've been here, but I think about that often. And there are, some of these things that I think of are happening, with say virtual interviews. I think about candidates coming in, sending Oculus glasses to candidates, so they're having a virtual tour of your clinic. Think about no resumes are required anymore. That perhaps applicant tracking systems go away, and it's just a candidate relationship management system that you're interacting or engaging with directly with the candidate. They're not necessarily spending time on a resume or trying to fill out a position, but it's really expressing interest. And then you have that engagement, and then you have a virtual interview, and next thing you know, it makes sense for them to come into the practice ultimately. But a lot of that stuff you can do up front from a technology perspective, which is going to be very, very cool. Certainly, kind of leaning into continually to lean into digital and social efforts are really going to be a difference maker for us as well. I mean, we're not on TikTok or Instagram. I think that I'd like to kind of explore those as potential places for some of our MA positions and PSR positions and that type of thing as well. But yeah, it will continuously be disrupted, and it will be about technology. And I do think that what's interesting about Forefront and being forward thinking is that the talent function itself has been kind of separated out. As opposed to it being more kind of traditionally housed in, under a chief human resources officer or HR. So I think there's a true recognition that, talent is here to stay. And you see, private equity firms as well, kind of hiring chief talent officers. So, all of those things are kind of coming into play, which would be fun for the next 10 years.
Awesome. Well, I think we're well on our way to that futuristic look just by hiring you and having you on board, Garth. I really appreciate the expertise and the talent you're bringing to the position. I always end the Forefront 5 with 5 key takeaways, but since you had all these genius ideas, I wanted to tell you what my 5 key takeaways were from your genius ideas. How does that sound? That sounds fantastic. That's great. Number 1, what I want the docs, PAs, NPs, all of our employees in support services to know that our talent acquisition team is doing for you to fill those tough to fill spots. Number 1, you guys are touching talent with technology outside of the bounds of what we've done traditionally with marketing and, perhaps with social in the future. Number 2, once the candidate and the talent apply, you have a really sophisticated tracking mechanism and a way to respond quicker to be the first person to offer interviews from the jobs in the community. Number 3, the onboarding experience is much more personal with videos from myself, perhaps the doctor in the clinic, et cetera. And it's just much more streamlined for that onboarding experience, because I think your first impression really matters what that job's going to be like down the road. Number 4, once you're in the job, not only employees that are working now, but new hires, we have some new technology, and we're going to ask you, how's it going? Ask for input, not only for people who maybe quit, but for the people who are working day in, day out. We want to hear from you, and we want to put out fires, make your job better, and get your feedback on how we can improve Forefront. And then number 5, we really are going to have the data behind all of our workforce at Forefront, and we can act on it. So these Forefront are all the things that your talent acquisition, something that's really near and dear to our hearts, because being short-staffed is probably the most difficult thing we can face, at least in the clinics and the call centers every day. we've heard you. We've hired some really talented people, Garth and others, and I think our future is really bright. So Garth, I've really enjoyed this. I thank you. This has been another episode of the Forefront 5.
Thank you, Dr. Wernley.